I still remember the sound of his voice that morning. Clear. Sharp. A little too confident for someone who had barely been with the company for 6 months. Tyler stood in front of the whole team, arms crossed, grin on his face, as he said it. Ethan still uses the old method. People laughed. A few glanced at me with that awkward half-smile people use when they don't want to take sides. But inside, something shifted. It wasn't the insult. I'd been called worse in the world of data work. No, it was the way he said it. Like he was tossing me aside. Like I didn't matter. Like 12 years of experience meant nothing to him. My name is Ethan, and for most of my career, I believed the work should speak for itself. I believed numbers told the truth. But that day, I learned people can twist the truth faster than any broken dataset ever could. Tyler was the new star, fresh out of a fancy program, full of fast tricks and shiny ideas. He spoke like everything before him was old news. And maybe that's why management liked him so much. He made noise. He looked modern. He made the company feel like it was stepping into the future. And me? I was the steady hand. The quiet one. The guy who checked everything twice. The guy who didn't rush just to look impressive. But that morning, standing in that bright conference room while Tyler smirked at me, I realized something else. Quiet people are easy targets. Especially for someone who wants to rise fast. The room moved on quickly, slides flipping, voices mixing, everyone pretending the moment hadn't stung. But it did. It stayed with me. Not because I felt old. But because I felt betrayed. I had helped Tyler during his first weeks. Showed him how our systems worked. Covered for him when he messed up a few small reports. I thought we were building trust. I thought he respected me. But now I saw it clearly, he wasn't climbing beside me. He was climbing over me. I stayed quiet, though. That's what I do. I let the moment slide, even though my chest tightened in that slow, burning way that tells you something is deeply wrong. Hours passed, but his words didn't fade. They echoed every time I looked at my screen. Every time I heard him laugh somewhere behind me. Every time another coworker said, "Tyler has great energy, doesn't he?" And then, late that evening, I stumbled onto something that changed everything. I was reviewing one of the reports he had been bragging about all week. Just curiosity at first. But in seconds, my stomach dropped. Something was off. Badly off. A small detail, easy to miss, but not if you knew where to look. Not if you cared about the truth. And as I dug deeper, the truth unfolded in a way that made my hands tense on the keyboard. Tyler wasn't just careless. He wasn't just fast. His numbers were wrong. Dangerously wrong. The kind of wrong that could shake the company from the inside out. For a moment, I just sat there, staring at the screen, listening to the soft hum of the office lights. And I realized. The same person who mocked me that morning might have put us all at risk. But the real question wasn't about the mistake. It wasn't even about proving myself. It was this, but how do you fight someone who doesn't even know what storm is coming? I didn't always doubt the people around me. In fact, for most of my time at Hawthorne Analytics, a mid-sized firm tucked into downtown Denver, I believed we were a team built on trust. Real trust, the kind where you cover each other's mistakes, share ideas, and move forward together. My name is Ethan Cole, Senior Data Analyst, 12 years in the field. 12 years of long nights, quiet mornings, and learning how numbers breathe. I wasn't flashy. I wasn't the loudest voice in the room. But I was steady. And steady matters. Even if people forget that sometimes. When Tyler Briggs joined our department, I honestly thought things were about to get better. He walked in with sharp energy, the kind that fills a room before he even speaks. Young, confident, great with new software tools, he had this way of making everyone feel like he was the future of analytics. People liked him right away. And I won't lie, part of me liked him too. He reminded me of who I was when I first started, hungry, curious, ready to catch every opportunity that floated by. So when our director asked me to mentor him, I didn't hesitate. I showed him how we checked datasets line by line. How we didn't rush, even when deadlines pushed hard. How we trusted the old method not because it was old, but because it protected us when everything else went wrong. I saw potential in him. A lot of it. And at first, he listened, or at least, he pretended to. We'd sit side by side, him clicking quickly through screens, me slowing him down just enough to explain why each step mattered. He would smile and say, "Got it, Ethan," but his fingers never stopped moving. He liked speed. He liked shortcuts. He liked results that looked impressive, even if they weren't ready. Still, I believed he'd settle in. That he'd learn the value of caution. That he'd understand this job isn't about shining, it's about being right. Being careful. Being responsible for the truth. But everything changed when the company announced the biggest project of the year. A high-stakes proposal for a national retail chain. If we won it, our department would double in size. Maybe even triple. Suddenly, everyone was working late, drinking extra coffee, pushing themselves harder than usual. The pressure felt like a weight on all our shoulders. And Tyler? He thrived in pressure. He saw it as a stage. A chance to prove that his new school style was better than anything we'd done before. He started moving faster. Cutting steps. Ignoring warnings I pointed out. Whenever I reminded him to double-check his work, he'd give me that easy smile and say, "Relax, Ethan. It's all good." But it wasn't all good. I could feel something slipping. Something small at first, a missing note here, a skipped process there. Little things that didn't break the system but shook the foundation. And yet, I kept helping him. Kept guiding him. Because that's what mentors do, right? They believe. They push forward. They try to build bridges instead of burning them. The days rolled on, the deadline crept closer, and tension thickened the air like a storm cloud waiting to burst. Meetings grew louder. People whispered about how this proposal could change everything. And maybe it could have. For all of us. If trust had held firm. If everyone on the team had stayed honest. But looking back now, I should have seen the signs sooner. Because while I was building trust, Tyler was building something else entirely. I didn't know it yet, but the same person I had mentored, guided, and believed in would soon take the one thing I valued most. And twist it against me. And that's when the real story began. I should have known the shift was coming. Looking back, the signs were all there, quiet at first, almost easy to ignore. But even the smallest crack can grow into something that breaks everything around it. Tyler changed the moment the big project became the center of the company. It was like he flipped a switch. He went from curious and eager to unstoppable. Or at least he thought he was. He stopped asking questions. Stopped slowing down. Stopped listening to anything that didn't match the fast, polished image he wanted to show everyone. I'd walk past his desk and see him rushing through projections, numbers flying across the screen faster than anyone could track. When I'd warn him that he missed a key trend or skipped a step, he'd barely look up. He'd just say, "Ethan, relax. I've got it." Every time he said those words, something in my chest tightened. And before long, the rest of the team started drifting toward him too. He was fun. He was loud. He had the kind of confidence that made people feel like they were part of something bold and new. Suddenly, more voices echoed his ideas. More heads nodded when he spoke. And fewer people asked for my input. It wasn't that I was jealous. I'd never cared about being the center of attention. But something felt off, like the team was being swept into a current that was moving too fast, too bright, too easy. One afternoon, I noticed a concerning pattern in Tyler's dataset. A trend he completely overlooked because he had rushed through it. A trend that, if ignored, would lead us down a dangerous path. I brought it to him gently, hoping he'd hear me. Tyler, this projection needs another look. You skipped a key variable. He didn't thank me. Didn't pause. Didn't even pretend to care. He just gave me this sideways smirk and said, Ethan, that's why your method takes too long. I streamlined it. Streamlined. That word hung in the air like a quiet warning. But the moment that truly told me something was wrong. That happened during a team meeting. We were all gathered around the big conference table. Screens glowing. Coffee cups everywhere. The usual chaos before a major presentation. Tyler stood at the front, walking the team through his approach. He clicked through slides with the confidence of someone who believed nothing could touch him. And then he said it. Now, I know some people still use the slow, outdated process, but this, he pointed at his chart, is how we move forward. Slow. Outdated. He never said my name. He didn't have to. Everyone knew who he meant. A couple of people laughed under their breath. Others avoided looking my way. And I just sat there, keeping my face calm even though I felt something inside me twist hard. I didn't explode. I didn't fire back. That's not who I am. Instead, I buried the frustration deep down where it couldn't be seen. But the thing about pushing emotions down is, they don't disappear. They wait. They build. They grow roots. As the meeting continued, I barely heard the rest of what he said. I was too focused on the uneasy feeling spreading through me, like a slow-moving storm forming somewhere nearby. Tyler didn't just ignore my guidance. He dismissed it. Mocked it. Used it as a stepping stone to make himself look sharper. And while everyone else was mesmerized by his confidence, I saw something different. I saw the cracks beneath the shine. I saw problems waiting to rise. But the real question was, when those problems finally surfaced, when the truth could no longer be ignored, who would be standing next to him? And who would be left standing alone? Even then, I sensed it. Something was coming. Something bigger than disagreement. Bigger than pride. A storm. And Tyler had no idea he was walking straight into it. I've lived through stressful meetings before, but nothing prepared me for the one that changed everything. It was the rehearsal for our major client pitch, the one project that could reshape the entire company. Everyone was there. The department head. The project managers. Half the analytics team. Even the CEO decided to sit in, which almost never happened. The room felt electric, buzzing with pressure and excitement. And at the center of it all stood Tyler, confident, polished, smiling like he already owned the moment. He began walking everyone through the presentation. Smooth voice. Clean slides. Fast numbers. Fast enough that I noticed small jumps in logic, little gaps he hoped nobody would question. But people didn't question him. They were too impressed by his delivery. Too taken by his style. And then it happened. The moment that still hits me in the chest when I think about it. Tyler paused mid-slide, turned slightly toward me, and said, "Now, this next section was delayed a bit because Ethan wanted to hold on to some old process." Old process. Said in that same tone as before, light, joking, but sharp enough to cut. A few people chuckled. My stomach dropped. But he wasn't done. He clicked to the next slide, and my eyes widened. He was showing my early draft files, rough versions I had prepared on day one of the project. Files that weren't polished. Files that still had placeholder numbers. Files he had specifically asked to review for learning. And now he was using them to expose mistakes I hadn't even finished correcting yet. He zoomed in on a section and casually added, "These projections were off because the method was outdated." I had to rebuild the whole thing. The room went silent. All eyes turned to me. I felt heat rise under my collar, but I forced myself to breathe. I wanted to speak. Explain. Defend myself. But before I could even open my mouth, our department head, Lauren, said, "Ethan, we can't afford slowdowns on this project. We need modern solutions, not old habits." Old habits. That phrase hit harder than any insult Tyler had thrown. I felt myself sink a little in my chair, suddenly smaller in a room where I'd once belonged. My voice felt trapped behind frustration I didn't want to show. Tyler glanced at me, just a quick look, but there was something there. Not apology. Not regret. Something closer to victory. Like he had planned this. Like he had waited for the perfect moment to push me aside. And then he delivered the final blow. "We can't rely on old methods anymore," he said, smiling toward management. "It slows us down." That was it. The room shifted. People nodded. Some whispered. Some avoided my eyes. And in that moment, I realized something heavy, something cold. This wasn't a mistake. It wasn't a misunderstanding. Tyler had used me, used my trust, my mentorship, my time, to set himself up as the hero of the project. He didn't just throw me under the bus. He drove it forward and made sure everyone saw me lying there. I felt isolated in a room full of people I had worked with for years. My voice didn't matter. My experience didn't matter. My years of loyalty didn't matter. All they could see was the shiny new thing in front of them. But even as the rehearsal continued, even as the team praised Tyler's smooth delivery and fresh approach, I felt something shift inside me. A slow-burning truth. A quiet realization. He had set me up. Step by step. Move by move. And while he celebrated, he had no idea that his plan, his perfect little web, was about to unravel. Because numbers may be twisted for a moment. But they always lead back to the truth. And the truth was already waiting for him. I didn't plan to stay late that night. Honestly, after what happened in the rehearsal, all I wanted was to go home, sit in silence, and try to remind myself why I still cared about this job. But something kept me in my chair. Something heavy. Something unfinished. Maybe it was pride. Maybe anger. Maybe the lingering sting of being humiliated in front of everyone. Whatever it was, I found myself alone in the quiet office long after the sun had disappeared behind the Denver skyline. The building hummed softly, lights dimmed, the world finally still. And in that stillness, one thought wouldn't leave me alone: what exactly was inside Tyler's shiny presentation? Not the slides. Not the speeches. The data behind them. The numbers he had rushed through. The numbers he insisted were perfect. So I opened the datasets. His models. His projections. The things he claimed were streamlined. And at first, everything looked normal. Too normal. Almost rehearsed. But numbers have a way of revealing the truth if you listen long enough. And after 12 years in this field, I knew how to listen. I kept digging. Line by line. Table by table. Formula by formula. And then, there it was. A sudden drop. A tiny shift. A percentage that didn't match the pattern surrounding it. Small enough that a casual user wouldn't notice. But loud enough that my entire body went still. I clicked deeper. Tracing where the number came from. What it connected to. Why it didn't match anything around it. And slowly, the truth unfolded. Tyler's entire model, his brilliant new approach, was built on a flawed assumption. Not a typo. Not a formatting slip. Not something that could be brushed away with a smile. This was a serious error. One that shifted every projection, every forecast, every recommendation. And worse? If that presentation went to the client, if they made decisions based on his rushed numbers, it could cost them millions. Millions. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the glowing screen. My pulse quickened. Not from fear, but from the weight of what this meant. Tyler hadn't just been arrogant. He hadn't just dismissed my guidance. He had built an entire proposal on a foundation that was ready to crack. He had put the company at risk. The client at risk. All of us at risk. And that's when another thought hit me, one colder than anything I'd felt that day. Did he even care? Or did he only care about looking like the star? I printed out the corrected dataset, clean, clear, undeniable proof. Each page felt heavier than the last. Evidence that could shut down his entire show if someone actually looked at it. But I didn't storm into his office. I didn't call him out. I didn't expose him on the spot. No. I placed the pages into a folder, tucked it into my bag, and quietly shut down my computer. Because something told me confronting him now wouldn't fix anything. He'd spin it. Smile through it. Charm his way out like he always did. No, this needed to be handled differently. Carefully. Silently. On my terms. As I walked out of the dark office, hearing my footsteps echo down the empty hallway, one truth settled deep inside me: revenge wasn't my plan, but justice was. The next morning, I walked into the office with a strange kind of calm. Not the peaceful kind, the quiet before a storm kind. The kind that settles into your bones when you know something big is coming. And you're finally ready for it. I didn't want to fight Tyler with arguments. I didn't want a dramatic showdown or shouting match. People like him thrive in chaos, they twist it, use it, shine through it. No. If he wanted to win through noise, then I would win through silence. Through truth. Through the one thing he couldn't outtalk or outshine, the numbers. So I sat at my desk and opened everything. Every dataset. Every projection. Every shortcut he took. And then I rebuilt it all from the ground up using the method he mocked. My old method. Slow. Maybe. Careful. Always. Accurate. Every time. And as the hours passed, page after page began forming a clear picture, a picture that showed exactly where Tyler's rushed model had slipped, cracked, and fallen apart. But rebuilding the truth wasn't the hard part. The hard part was staying calm while doing it. Ignoring the whispers. Ignoring Tyler's loud jokes 3 desks away. Ignoring the part of me that wanted to stand up and say, "You almost destroyed all of us with your shortcuts." Instead, I breathed. Focused. Let the work speak for me. When the final corrected projection printed from the machine, I held the warm paper in my hands and felt something shift inside me. Not anger. Not pride. Something steadier. Something stronger. Justice. But I knew if I took this straight to management myself, they'd think it was personal. They'd think I was trying to get revenge for the humiliation. They'd dismiss me, just like they did in that meeting. So I did something I never thought I would do. I sent the report anonymously. A simple email. No name. No explanation. Just the subject line, urgent, review before client presentation. And attached to it, the truth. Plain. Clear. Undeniable. 5 minutes later, my department head walked past my desk, her face pale, eyes fixed on her tablet. 10 minutes after that, 2 managers rushed into a conference room together. Then the CEO. Then the project director. Something was happening. Something big. Finally, my inbox pinged. A message from Lauren, the department head, emergency review meeting. Conference room 2. Immediately. No explanation. No details. Just urgency. I stood up slowly, my heart steady, my hand surprisingly calm. Tyler shot me a confused look as he headed toward the room, but I didn't look back at him. When I walked into the conference space, the atmosphere was tense, quiet but charged, like the air before lightning strikes. Everyone was seated. Everyone looked concerned. And on the screen, my corrected report. Lines. Charts. Proof. Lauren cleared her throat. These numbers were sent anonymously, she said. But we need to discuss them immediately. Tyler shifted in his chair, forced a smile, and said, "Well, I'm sure it's just someone misunderstanding my approach," but his voice cracked slightly. Just enough to show he felt the ground move beneath him. I didn't speak a word. Didn't accuse him. Didn't look for credit. I simply watched as the truth began pulling apart the image he had built. Not loudly. Not violently. Just, inevitably. Because sometimes justice doesn't need anger. Sometimes it doesn't need confrontation. Sometimes all it needs is patience. And a spotlight bright enough to expose what was hiding underneath. And in that room, with every eye fixed on the numbers that told the real story, I felt the shift begin. The storm was here. And Tyler had no idea how unprepared he truly was. The moment I walked into the emergency meeting, I knew something was different. The air felt heavy, tight, almost buzzing, like everyone in the room already sensed that the ground was about to shift beneath us. The entire leadership team was there. Directors. Senior managers. Even the CEO sat near the front, arms crossed, eyes sharp. And beside them, trying to hide the nervous tap of his foot, sat Tyler. He still carried that practiced smile, but it didn't reach his eyes. Not today. At the center of the room, the big display screen flickered awake. The anonymous report, my report, filled the space with cold, undeniable clarity. Charts. Corrections. Side-by-side comparisons. Numbers that didn't care about charm or confidence. Numbers that simply told the truth. When Lauren, our department head, cleared her throat, the entire room went silent. "Thank you all for coming on such short notice," she said. "Before we finalize our pitch to the client, we need to review these discrepancies." Discrepancies. A polite word for potential disaster. She clicked the first slide. A corrected chart replaced Tyler's original projection. The shift in the numbers was obvious, dramatic in a way that couldn't be ignored. I watched as eyebrows lifted. Whispers started. Then stopped, because no one wanted to miss a single detail. Finally, one of the executives leaned forward and asked, "Tyler, can you explain this?" That was the moment the room shifted again. Tyler smiled too quickly. "Yes, of course, this must be a misunderstanding. Maybe someone misread my inputs." He laughed lightly, trying to break the tension, but the sound fell flat. Another executive pointed at the screen. "This isn't a small mistake. This changes the entire outcome." "How did this happen?" Tyler's fingers twitched on the table. His eyes darted from the screen to the faces staring at him. Well, the only person who had access to the early versions was Ethan," he said quickly. "He's been uneasy with the new approach. Maybe and just like that, the betrayal sharpened again. He tried to drag my name into it. Tried to flip the blame back onto me, like he always did. But this time, the room didn't buy it. Not with the evidence sitting right there. Not with the truth staring back at them in bold lines and corrected figures." Lauren turned toward me. "Ethan, do you have anything to add?" I stood slowly. Not angry. Not proud. Just steady. "Yes," I said. My voice didn't shake. "I rebuilt the model myself, using the standard method we've used for years." I stepped toward the screen and pointed to a single line in the dataset. "This assumption here is wrong. If you follow it through the formula, the error spreads into every projection. The corrected version shows the accurate trend. No attacking. No dramatic speech. Just facts. Just truth. The room stayed quiet. Then the CEO leaned back in his chair and exhaled deeply. "This could have cost us everything," he said. "Thank you, Ethan, for catching it." Tyler's face drained of confidence. His charm evaporated. He tried again. I didn't know, Ethan must have, there's no way, but this time, nobody listened." Lauren closed her folder. "Tyler, we're removing you from the project effective immediately. We'll discuss your next steps separately." Next steps. A calm phrase, but everyone understood what it meant. Then she turned to me. And for the first time in weeks, I saw something in her eyes I thought I'd lost: respect. "Ethan," she said, "we owe you an apology. Thank you for protecting the integrity of this project." And just like that, the room, the story, the entire balance of power shifted. Not because I fought louder. Not because I tried to outshine anyone. But because the numbers, the quiet, honest numbers, finally spoke louder than any showmanship could. The storm had landed. And Tyler. He never saw it coming. The day after the emergency meeting felt strangely quiet. Not the uncomfortable kind, more like the air finally settled after a long, crashing storm. People moved through the office a little slower, speaking a little softer, almost as if they were still processing what happened. And in the middle of all that silence, something unexpected happened. People started coming up to me. Not with forced smiles or half-hearted compliments. But with honest, steady words: "Hey, Ethan, good catch yesterday. Thanks for saving the project. I didn't realize how much detail went into your process." Some of the same coworkers who once looked past me now paused at my desk, really seeing me for the first time. Not as the old method guy. Not as the quiet background figure. But as the person who kept the whole company from walking straight off a cliff. It felt strange. Nice, but strange. Recognition wasn't something I ever chased. And maybe that's why it meant more than I expected. Later that morning, Lauren, our department head, asked me to step into her office. I braced myself, but this time, there was no tension in her voice. She gestured for me to sit and said, "Ethan, we want you to lead the client project moving forward." For a moment, I just stared at her. Lead the project. Me. It didn't even feel real. She continued, "You've shown the level of accuracy and responsibility this pitch needs. We trust you. The team trusts you. And honestly, your method is not old. It's solid. Solid. Not flashy. Not loud. Just solid." And for the first time in weeks, I felt the weight on my shoulders lift. I nodded, still a bit stunned. "Thank you. I'll give it everything I've got." She smiled. "I know you will." But inevitably, my eyes drifted to the other side of the office where Tyler usually sat. His desk looked smaller now, almost swallowed by the space around it. He wasn't in his usual spot, loud, laughing, drawing attention. Instead, I found him later in a corner room with HR and a training coordinator. His head was down, his shoulders slumped, the shine gone from his expression. He wasn't fired. The company didn't want to destroy his career. But they did something that may have hit him even harder: they moved him to a junior role. To be retrained. A step backward. A reminder. A quiet consequence that would stay with him far longer than a dramatic punishment ever could. When he finally walked past my desk, he didn't make eye contact. He didn't make a joke. He didn't show the confidence he once carried like armor. He just nodded once, a small, almost silent gesture. Not quite an apology. But something close. And honestly, that was enough for me. I wasn't looking to ruin him. I wasn't trying to humiliate him the way he did to me. I just wanted the truth to win. Just wanted the project, and the people depending on it, to be safe. And now, it was. As I settled into my new role overseeing the proposal, coworkers leaned in more. They asked questions. Listened carefully. Respected the process I had protected for years. No one called it old method anymore. They called it reliable. Dependable. The reason the company didn't fall apart. And while I didn't say it out loud, a quiet thought stayed with me the rest of the day: sometimes being steady is more powerful than being loud. Sometimes patience beats speed. And sometimes the truth doesn't need to shout. It simply needs someone willing to stand by it. For the first time in a long time, I felt exactly where I needed to be. Not old. Not outdated. Just right. If there's one thing the whole experience taught me, it's this: sometimes the quietest truth speaks louder than any speech, any show, any spotlight. I didn't realize it at first. In the early days, when Tyler overshadowed me with his confidence and quick moves, I actually questioned myself. Was I too slow? Too careful? Too old in my ways? But when the dust finally settled, I saw everything with new clarity. It wasn't that my method was old. It was that it was honest. Steady. Rooted in something deeper than speed: integrity. And integrity doesn't always shine right away. It doesn't sparkle or impress people on the surface. Sometimes it hides quietly beneath long hours, unnoticed details, and choices no one else sees. But when trouble hits, when the truth matters, integrity becomes the strongest thing in the room. As the new project lead, I worked late one evening, reviewing updated reports while the office around me grew quiet. The building hummed softly, just like the night I discovered Tyler's mistake. Only this time, the feeling inside me was different. Not frustration. Not doubt. But peace. The kind of peace that comes from knowing you didn't bend just because someone else made noise. You didn't abandon the truth to look impressive. You didn't rush just to win attention. You stayed yourself, even when being yourself didn't seem to matter. And it was in that moment, when the numbers glowed on my screen, clean and correct, that I truly understood the lesson this whole journey had given me. Fast doesn't always mean better. Flashy doesn't always mean right. And shortcuts? They never outrun the truth for long. People might forget how careful you were. They might overlook the hours you spent double-checking your work. They might even mock you, call you slow, outdated, unnecessary. But the truth remembers. Every choice. Every step. Every moment you stood by your principles while others chased the spotlight. And when the truth finally rises, when it steps into the room and demands to be seen, it outshines everything else. That's what happened with Tyler. His confidence faded the moment the real numbers appeared. Not because I defeated him, but because the truth exposed what his shortcuts tried to hide. And funny enough, the same coworkers who once brushed past my advice now come to me first. They ask questions differently. They listen more closely. They understand that in a world obsessed with speed, reliability is rare and powerful. I sometimes catch myself smiling at that. Not out of pride, but out of quiet gratitude. Because I didn't just protect the project. I rediscovered something about myself: my method wasn't the problem. My voice wasn't too quiet. My pace wasn't too slow. I simply valued doing things right, even when no one was watching. So here's the truth I'll carry with me for the rest of my career, maybe for the rest of my life: shortcuts may win the moment, but integrity wins the ending. And as I turned off my monitor and packed my bag that night, I thought about what Tyler once said to the whole team, the line that stung the most back then. He called me old method. I paused at the door, took a slow breath, and let the final thought settle in my mind, the thought that tied everything together. He called me old method. But in the end, that method saved everything. If Ethan's story touched something in you, if you've ever been overlooked, doubted, or pushed aside, remember this: truth has a way of rising. If you want more stories where justice finds its voice, hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Your support helps bring these powerful moments to life. And no matter what anyone calls you, stay steady, stay true, because the quiet ones often write the strongest endings.